Well, during the presidential campaign this year, the rhetoric is running hot and heavy about millionaires. From Mitt Romney's tax rate to Warren Buffett's call to reinstate the estate tax, the debate has focused attention on whether millionaires are paying their fair share. Well, it turns out that many of them do recognize a personal sense of responsibility to give back. Scott Cunningham is here with the results of PNC's new Wealth and Values Survey. He's Executive Vice President and Regional Managing Director with PNC Wealth Management, a sponsor of our region's business. Welcome. Good to see you.
Bill, thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, well, this was on everybody's minds these days, and who wouldn't want to be inside the mind of a millionaire? Why'd you decide to take a look at this?
Let's illustrate this by taking a look at the conversation between Hemingway and Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald says, you know, the rich are very different from you and I. And Hemingway said, yes, they have more money than we do. And so the question comes, do millionaires, do people of wealth think differently than those people without the wealth?
Okay.
And so part of the survey is to say, what are their values? What do they think about their wealth? Does having the money make their values different? And so hence the survey.
Okay, very good. And so the top line then, what did you learn when you actually took the pulse of these folks?
The overall finding was that millionaires who answered our survey say that if you have wealth, then it comes with responsibility. So what their findings really were, they expressed the value that if you have wealth, then there's an expectation that you should do more for society with your wealth.
Okay, so that would be consistent. I mean, we've heard the incredibly rich, like Warren Buffett or Bill Gates, say that there's almost an obligation of people who are extremely successful to give back. You found some of the same sense within the survey as well?
We did. It's interesting because we asked specifically about Warren Buffett and questions related to Warren. Now, first of all, a lot of our respondents said, you know, Warren Buffett's the third richest man in the world. He's worth $39 billion. We're just millionaires.
There's millionaires, then there's billionaires.
Exactly.
Okay, right. Yeah.
So if Warren went from 39 to 38, there's not a difference. But what did our respondents tell us? For example, 71% of them agreed with Buffett's assertion that the very wealthy should be strongly philanthropic and also that they should pay more in taxes. So 70% of our respondents agreed with that. What else? 70% also agreed that people who achieve their level of financial success do have a special responsibility to society and to care for those people who are less fortunate. Well, what else? 64% said they agree that they personally should give substantial sums to charity, and 59% of respondents agree that they feel an obligation to give back financially to society.
Very cool. So they that's the way they feel, and they're talking the talk. The question is, do they walk the walk?
Well, I think, do they put their values into place? And I think the answer is yes. What we also found was that of the millionaires we surveyed, their level of giving is actually increasing pretty dramatically since 2008. So what we're seeing is that the group we surveyed has reported giving between $25,000 a year and $999,000 a year in charitable donations. And that group has actually tripled in size over the last 3 years. In 2009, about 9% of respondents said they would give at that level. In 2010, it was up to 22%. And this past year's response rate was about 27%. So a tripling in 3 years of people willing to give between $25,000 and $999,000.
Perhaps reflects a little bit more confidence in the economy. I mean, everybody, even millionaires, I suppose, were affected by the recession a few years ago.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it just goes to show when they have the means, they give.
Okay,
and
so
generously.
Philanthropy is not dead, and that's certainly encouraging. But what about on the tax side? I mean, nobody wants to pay taxes. Are they willing to open their wallets when it comes to taxes?
Well, the indication was no one wants to pay more taxes than they're required to or they have to, but they're willing to pay their fair share. And in fact, a number of the respondents said they would not object to paying more in tax if it would help the government balance their budget. So that was one good finding. Something else that was interesting, though, about 1/3 of our respondents said that people should pay more taxes to help balance the budget, but 40% said they thought that they could use the money and use it more productively to help the economy and society than could the government.
Oh, okay. So they like the incentives, like the charitable deductions and everything that encourage them to do the giving and the investing themselves.
Or even put the money into businesses.
Okay.
Or the startups. So there is a trade-off. The people are expressing that trade-off between what they could do with it versus what the government could do with it.
And what is the greater public good, ultimately, right? Because growing businesses certainly has benefits in creating jobs and generating tax revenue.
Sure, and that's politics. We have to make that decision.
Yeah, well, that's what policy is all about. So when you look at everybody you heard from and you kind of take a look at the responses you get, I mean, what's your takeaway from all of this?
There's one main takeaway, and that really is that millionaires recognize a personal responsibility to help the less fortunate and to support the functions of government. But I think here's a real takeaway, and we'll go back to Hemingway and Fitzgerald. What's the difference? Well, what we find is the millionaires think with their hearts and not just their wallets. So maybe the millionaires are much more like us than Fitzgerald may think. Maybe they're more like Hemingway.
Yeah, as it turns out, they're not too different. It's just the size of their bank accounts to some degree. So what do you do as an organization? I mean, why do you take the survey in particular, and then what do you do with it as PNC Wealth Management?
Well, we're in the advice-giving business. So we say we're wealth managers, but what we do is we give our clients advice. How do you manage the wealth? And a lot of the information clients are interested in is not just what they feel, but what would someone in my position also feel? What do they do? What do your other clients feel? Now, of course, we don't violate confidences, of course, but they'll say, am I thinking the right way? And what we can share with them is saying, well, here's what our survey reveals. Here's what we know about your values. And so in many cases, it'll affirm people's values and what they want to do. In other cases, it may cause them to think about a position they may have had. So it helps them make better decisions by being able to look at the survey results.
Well, fascinating that they kind of look at their peers and are influenced about, what is the attitude toward philanthropy in these issues.
Yeah, and it is. I think part of what people will always think about is, do I have the resources that I need to take care of my family, of course? Do I have the resources to take care of my charities? And of course, I have my societal obligations. And so they're always trying to balance all three. And in doing so, they just want to make sure they don't shortchange one versus the other. And of course, as a husband and a father yourself, your priority is you always want to make sure that your family is provided for. And so that's always a big concern as well.
Sure, and I guess you've seen it too over the last decade. The stress when the recession was really deep, that introduces a lot of uncertainty. It makes these choices a lot more difficult.
Without a doubt, there's a direct correlation between people's wealth and their ability to give. And so what our charities would tell you is that if the people are doing well, they can give generously, and they will give generously.
Well, fascinating stuff. Good to get a little bit of insight about millionaires and what they're thinking these days, and a little bit heartening at the same time. Scott Cunningham from PNC, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill.
And next up, Salenture will share some tips on how to leave as much as you can behind for your heirs, your employees, and even for yourself in the way you manage your business today. Stay with us.